Have you ever found the word grief too heavy to speak, too overwhelming to even think about? You're nodding, right? Actually, so am I. Together, we'll explore the G word. Yes, I mean grief. This isn't your everyday podcast. Here we'll dive into grief's raw, ugly, scary, and yes, occasionally beautiful facets. As your host, Caitlin, I'll share my personal experiences and conversations with people, providing you with comfort and resources in your darkest moments. The G word bridges the gap between silence and the conversation on grief among adolescents and young adults, a conversation we often shy away from. From strategies to cope, understanding guilt and regret, to embracing acceptance and finding meaning, the G word is a safe space created for you, a place where you can feel seen, heard, understood. Shouldering sorrow with strength and grace isn't easy, but with our shared grief, shared resilience, we, the young survivors, march forward one step at a time. Be seen, be heard on the G word. Join us, let's navigate the journey of grief together. It's time to break the silence. Hello everybody, welcome back to the second episode of the G word. I've actually got around to recording it. I've just had a really hectic week this week. How's your week been? Going back to mine of how hectic it's been. Gosh, I've just been doing so much. I've been working, I've just been studying, I've been going out. I went to a garage techno night on Friday and it was so fun. And I just completed dry Jan this week as well. Whoop whoop. So I was very well behaved. I literally only had 2 drinks, I think, and it still got me feeling tipsy. Tells you the absolute how much of an influence dry Jan had on me. But do you know what? I felt so rich in January. It was so fun. I went on a night out once with my friends, and it literally cost me £1 because I was drinking squash. It was vibes. So my advice to you, if you're thinking about doing a dry Feb, or maybe we've started Feb now, so you want to maybe do a dry March, then I am here for it. Especially as January is a long ass month. 31 days. 31 days. So you know what? If you did a dry April, that's 30 days. Or if you're a bit late to the party and you want to do a dry Feb now, then think about it. Wait, it's a leap year this year? It is. So you'd only have to do 25 days now. But you know what? Set yourself a small little goal, measurable goal, smart goal, specific, measurable. Is it accurate, attainable? SMA. Realistic time. Yes, set yourself a smart goal. And it can be on one of the listless things ever. That might be such a big thing to you. And just set yourself a goal for it. It could be you're going to wash your face every morning and every evening. Because you know what? I'm not here to judge. Sometimes I don't do that. I might do it once a day. I think I do at least once a day. I hope I do at least once a day. But the things that maybe it might be slightly a bit more difficult for yourself to do, just set yourself a goal, a small, realistic one, and you aim to get that. And if you don't get it the first time, try again. Step back, have a look, be like, what could I change? Why didn't I achieve it this time? Again, set that goal and you make those little wins for yourself. Anyway, back to my week. So I went out for dinner with a friend. Saturday was jam packed, so I went and donated blood for the third time. Big up. And what else I do? Gosh, I can't remember. Do you know when it's just went and donated blood? Then I went into town and I watched rugby, the Six Nations, with some of the rugby girls. Honestly, so tense. I was actually quite scared of one of the girls because she was screaming and shouting so loud, and I'd never seen that side of her before. And then I went to a comedy show on my own, and he's called Ori Styler, and I saw him in London once. He was a warm-up act for Babatunde Elise, when me and my friend went to watch Babatunde's show. Oh my gosh, it was in hysterics. And I saw that he was doing a show up this way, up near my university, and I was like, bro, I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna go watch it. And I tell you now, I had such a good time, and I could ugly laugh, and no one there knew me. So I could ugly laugh all I wanted and didn't feel insecure or anything. So sometimes if you're thinking of wanting to do something and you don't go because no one else wants to go with you, no, 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 no. Scrap that mindset, girl, or boy, or person. Scrap that mindset. You know, um, just do it. I've found some of the things I've done. I've had so much happiness in going on my own because that is just time for me, myself, and I to go and really enjoy the things that I like to do in life. I went to go see Joe Lycett on my own in Birmingham once. I go out for dinner on my own sometimes, because if I want to treat myself, I will treat myself. And also, when you go out for dinner on your own, it means you can get the novelty of eating that really yummy, scrummy food and not having to like split the bill or not having to like pay for anybody else. So keep being selfish, but in the good selfish ways. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you are the only person that will look out for yourself. So it's good to have your own back sometimes. It's good to fall in love with the things that you love. Like oh no, sorry. It's good to fall back in love with the things that really added to your life. And that's something where you need to be confident and brave and you'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen? Literally, what is the worst that could happen? So, enough about my intro of me waffling and talking. Well, we obviously know this is a podcast and I'm hosting it. So, this is going to be me waffling and talking. So, this week I'm going to be talking about coping strategies. And like I say, we all know it's not a linear process, and everybody has different ways to process, to cope with the complexities of grief and the emotions we feel when we are processing grief. And we experience grief in different ways, with losing a loved one, through the breakdown of a relationship, through maybe a change of circumstances, such as a redundancy. Um, there are so many different ways that we face losses in our life. And I think maybe hearing from my personal experiences of how I've gone through the past, well, 4 years at least, of some way of coping, it might bring some solace to you. You know, I'm not saying you have to do what I say. I am no genius in this. These are ways that I have maybe heard about and I have then tried to implement myself, or these are ways that I've just done them myself and they have seemed to have a more so positive impact on my self, the way I view myself, my self image, or the way that I you know, um, just really go forward with more confidence and really use my feelings of grief to empower myself and push myself forward. So, as you all know, I went through grief myself when I lost my dad a couple of years ago. Everybody handles grief differently, and these strategies, such as physical exercise, speaking to close friends and family, and just spending quality time with my family, um, really helped. And I actually will talk about external things such as attending counselling, going to support groups, or even journaling. There are so many ways that we as individuals can make ourselves feel more calm and relaxed, and there is no right or wrong. Obviously, if it's illegal, then that may be wrong, but we're not promoting that at the moment. So, and I promise you, I've not done anything illegal to cope with this, with my feelings of grief. And so, obviously, I'm not going to promote anything illegal. So that's a disclaimer, by the way. So when my dad passed away, it was obviously around the time of COVID. So we were put into lockdown, the peak lockdown where you're only allowed out for one walk a day and it had to be like a half an hour walk. And you thought, I don't know, your neighbours were going to be whistleblowers, like, Nazi Germany, for example, which is really, I should not compare COVID times to Nazi Germany, but hey ho. Um, so for like exercise is just such a good way to cope with overwhelming emotions. And I know, and I've been in this situation when you're thinking about, oh, should I go for a walk? Should I go for a run? Should I go to training tonight? You have such an overwhelming feeling of thinking, that's not going to help me. Like, why am I going to do that? I'm not in the right headspace at the moment. And actually, 9 times out of 10, you realize once you go there, then once you get back, and once you have a shower, or once you're chilling, and you just feel so much more calmer, I believe. It helps clear my head when I'm feeling overwhelmed with emotions. Um, I even tried yoga and stretching at home because obviously you couldn't really go out. Like there was a lot of things where they were trying to advocate, you know, one-on-one exercise, for example. And I really recommend finding some form of physical activity that you enjoy and just trying to do it a couple of times a week. And y- you could go and pick up a new sport. There is literally no one judging you. There might be a time where you're thinking, oh, I've always wanted to try karate, for example. Go and do it. What is stopping you? And once you try it, you can realize, okay, do I want to do it again? Do I not, for example? And I also think you've got to channel it into, for me, what really helps me when I want to try new experiences is I'm like, my dad would really want me to just go and grab every opportunity that I possibly can. And in a way, if I talk myself out of it, am I kind of upsetting him to some extent? But that's how I cope with it, for example. Like, I know my dad would love to see me thrive trying new things. And I think that's kind of what pushes me to try new sports. Like, I think next week I'm actually going to go play squash with one of my group project members because she was saying, oh, come on, you can go and hit a ball at a wall. And I was like, okay, maybe. And she said she's a coach as well. And she's played like national back in India, like national level. So actually, I might monopolize off this, like I might get really good lessons for free. So, so like just don't be afraid to try new things. Exercise is just such a good way. And you can even hybrid it, go for a walk. Go for a walk with your best friend, if you want to talk about things. It's just open air. You can go in for a walk, go for a run. You can go and scream. And I promise you, no one will be listening. Like, just sometimes when you're in an overwhelming situation, the best thing to do is remove yourself out of it and to try and concentrate and channel your energy into something else. And I really, really highly recommend exercise because I think doing rugby here at uni has saved me for a lot of dark times. Like, especially when I first moved away from uni, it was obviously difficult because I was feeling overwhelmed, I was feeling homesick. And then now I've done my return to uni after a year out for mental health reasons, and I'm going through a recent breakup, it has helped me immensely. Like, there are 2 days I look forward to in my like working week, and that is a Monday and a Friday because I know for an hour and a half I can go and smash the hell out of bags, people, have a laugh, have a cry. These girls have seen me in tears for the last 2 weeks, and I've gone, I'll be fine, I'll be fine, I'll be fine. And do you know what? It was only a training session today. Not a single tear came out of me. Not saying that I'm not gonna cry ever again, but you just see how much of a growth there is. And one of the girls said to me, she was like, she came up to me and said, you seem like you're doing really well today. And do you know what? That made me feel so, so happy. So, like I say, exercise, it's a good way to meet people. It's a good way just to really focus your energy on something else that isn't as draining, isn't as upsetting. So, I really, really highly recommend exercise. So, in regards to my love language, and you're going to think, why am I bringing up a love language? It's a grief podcast. Well, so obviously, we've got there's a study that's been done, and they say individuals have five love language. There are five love languages in you know the world, society, general life. The whole shazam. Um, and we as individuals like to receive certain love languages, and we like to give certain love languages. And when those love languages have been undermined or insulted, for example, that's when we feel really vulnerable as individuals. So you've got physical touch, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and words of affirmation. So I actually have done some really interesting reading about it, and it's about how sometimes the best couples actually have completely different love languages to some extent. And it's really weird because you then somehow find like a norm and a kind of equilibrium, and it actually means that the relationship is fulfilled in quite a um deep but subtle way. So for me, my love language that I like to receive from people is quality time. And this could be anything. This could be from like even sitting in the same room and reading books that we are both like interested in, but they could be complete stark different books. You know what I mean? Like you could have a horror book someone could like, and I could be reading a rom-com, for example. But for me, quality time is really, really important to me. And I think that has kind of been through with my family, for example, with my dad and my mum. My dad, well, they'd both make sure that we would spend quality time together as a family. So we'd go to cinema some weekends, we would go out for dinner, or we would just have movie nights at home, just the quality time aspect. So I think going forward in my relationships, that is what I really, really value. And for me, when that's kind of threatened or undermined or not taken seriously, that really upsets me. So spending meaningful time with friends and family. So my mum's sister and I, during lockdown, we, started a weekly game night tradition, and we just found activities we can do together and bond and make memories. It could be playing games, it could be cooking a meal, it could be watching movies. It's literally anything you enjoy. And that's my own personal kind of love language. And I think I didn't really know about love languages until I got into my first relationship and we did the quiz about it. And I realized quality time is actually my highest. And the one I actually like to give to people is kind of acts, it's a hybrid of acts and services and gifts. But it's really weird because gifts is like the lowest on my list. So it's so weird and bizarre, isn't it? And it's very crazy. But if you've got time to read into love languages, I really, really recommend you do, because you can find out a lot about yourself. And then going forward into relationships, you can be more confident with what you want. And because you never know, your love language might be something that you feel quite insecure about, and you might feel upset and shy to speak about that. But actually, that is you, and that is subconsciously what you need in a relationship. And I think it's really, really good to speak to your partner or your future partner just about that as well. And I think you can really make deep, meaningful connections. DMC. Sorry, that's just like a joke we had with the rugby girls, like, in my first year of uni. We were just talking about, got to look for a deep, meaningful connection, and it just made me laugh. So yeah, yeah. And in regards to just talking to people, I think that can help immensely. I think I don't want to speak on part of everybody, but I feel like, especially as a young adolescent or a young adult going through the feelings of grief, and you've got lots of things going on, you've got, if you're in education, you've got A levels, GCSEs, you've got studies, you've got navigating friendship groups, you have just life in general. You've got things like perception of you. I think when I was 16, 15 to 16, I was so conscious of what people thought of me, what people thought of my body image. I was developing breasts, for example. So I wanted to show them off more so on Instagram, to show people that I'm growing up, I'm more mature. And actually looking back on it, was that really necessary? Well, no. If 21-year-old me saying that now, then I wish I said that to 15, 16-year-old me. But you feel like a burden. You do. You don't prioritize your feelings enough because you think there's more things in the world that are more important than your feelings, and that's not the case. I had heart to hearts with my best friends, and do you know what I feel really shows how valuable they were, is in regards to, I'm still best friends with the same four girls that were my best friends at school from the age of 15, 16. And it's lovely because I think I'm not necessarily saying the fact that me sharing my experience about grief and stuff has really strengthened those bonds. I think the relationship with my friends has just taken its natural course, and it's maintained itself. And it's really, really lovely, considering we've all gone done different things. Like, a few of us have gone to uni, a few of us like have stayed at home. We've been at unis that are like 4 or 5 hours away from each other, and that hasn't changed anything. Um, and I was able to open up about my dad to them, and it really meant the world because I really did not feel any judgment. And I think you need to realize your friends want you to speak out rather than bottle it up, and that's really unhealthy. And I know you might think it's easier because you're not going to burden them, but it's just so much better. And I think at the end of the day, you've got to think of it. If your friend was struggling and they didn't speak up to you about something, you would feel insulted as a friend, because you would then think, do they not trust me enough? Am I not approachable enough? And do you know what? That's what I think, when you need that switch, in the sense of like, if you start opening up to them, then it will just become a kind of cycle of a harmonious, safe space. And I have that with my friends, like, I could literally message my friend at like 1 in the morning. She might be asleep, and I could say something really random, like, "Oh, I don't know, um, me and my sister had an argument," for example. And then I know at 8 a.m. or whatever, when she wakes up, she's gonna reply and be like, "Oh, like, are you okay? What's going on?" etc. And it's like there's no judgment there, like, and it's just really lovely. And if you're struggling to start those vulnerable conversations, you could always write them a letter. You could always write them a message and send it to them. If you're feeling that you've got that fear of actually physically, verbally opening up to them, like face to face, one on one, and you just explain how you feel, just speak to a support system. And I think I've realized while having relationships, like, as much as I am a very loving person and I appreciate speaking to my partner, I don't always want to offload on them. There are some things which I actually feel more comfortable talking to my best friends about than my boyfriend. And you're probably thinking that probably doesn't lead to healthy relationships, but actually it's okay, because then spoken to my friends about it. And it's nothing against my like my partners, nothing against them. It's just sometimes there are things where these people have been in my life for longer than them, and I have more, not necessarily trust, but I have been vulnerable to them in that sense before, and I know that they haven't used it against me. I'm not saying that I think my partner would, nothing like that, but you know, how can you compare 6 months to 5 years, for example? So if you are in a place where you think you're offloading to a partner a lot, and you feel like you don't want it to necessarily, you want to talk about things, but you don't necessarily feel completely comfortable, and you feel like you're only saying things because you have to, because kind of um you're in this kind of transactional relationship, in the sense of we're together, so we have to be open to each other all the time about everything, then maybe think about talking to your friends. Like, I'm not saying that, and like, I personally, you might disagree, I personally think that's not an unhealthy thing. You need to have your boundaries as an individual, and I think really having a good support unit outside of your relationship is very, very, like, healthy. Um, and I also started journaling. I know I'm not really good with my words, which is really funny because I'm starting a podcast, which, yeah. Well, maybe I am good with my words. Um, but I'm not really good with my words all the time. So sometimes when I was feeling overwhelmed, I would write my emotions down to process them on my own terms. And I'd found, actually, writing letters to my dad about how I was coping, and writing him things that had happened in my life. And for me, what brings me solace is the fact that I think he is watching over me, and every achievement I am reaching, he is sharing that pride with me. Um, and he is beaming with a massive smile. Sorry, I'm also going to add, I'm a bit congested at the moment, so if I sound bunged up, I'm sorry. It's just cold and flu season. It is February now, guys. um, but I think he is watching over me, and that brings me some solace. And but obviously, you know, he's got other people to watch over. So sometimes I write him things, like I write him letters to say, what have I been up to? What have I been doing? Although I know he won't be able to write back, it's just nice to know that they're there, and I keep them in a drawer, and I look over them sometimes, and sometimes I laugh, and I'm like, gosh, what was going on in my life at that time, And then sometimes I look at them and I cry, and I think of the growth I have exhibited since then. Um, it's just getting the thoughts out of your head, which I think is really, really therapeutic. And it doesn't have to be just words. You can draw, you can do poetry. Um, The more I think about it, I think I might have been a poet in my previous life, because some of the things I'm writing now, I could put in an anthology and I think it would pop off. I'm joking. I just like write down some things and it's like you look at it and you think, wow, that could actually be a poem. Look at me go. But it's subjective. That's what I think. And that's, if I want to write a poem, I want to write a poem, you know. And my mum suggested to me once, actually, I should um, write the letters and then like learn to make an origami boat, then put them on down a lake. But obviously, I'm like, Astra. That's not my mum. Astra. Yes, like the Vauxhall car. I mean, luckily she wasn't called Corsa. Do you know what I mean? But with Astra, also with my mother, I was like, I would do that, but I also don't want to like cause pollution, and also if a duck was to choke on it, I'd feel mortified knowing that I've got a dead dad and I've just killed a duck. So maybe don't do that, but maybe store them somewhere so you can reflect on them. So don't take a leaf out of Astra's book. Naughty Astra. And also, about 6 months after my dad passed away, I actually started having counselling through an external service. At my sixth form. It was called the Yo-Yo Project. It was run by Farley Hospice, and obviously the symbolism of a yo-yo is that you go up and down, and that means like emotions, just life in general. And it was really, really nice because nothing per se was reported back to my sixth form, and obviously anything would be if it was a cause for concern for my well-being. But I was fortunately in a place where that wasn't jeopardized. So it was just a nice place to just have an hour to talk to someone, and we'd talk every week, and obviously I'd be feeling emotions. I'm not saying I'd remember everything like what I said, but it'd be like she would message, like, not message, sorry, she would speak to me about things maybe that I had spoken about the week before, and I'd kind of forgot said about them, or I'd then reflect on my week and look at the growth I've had, or maybe not necessarily the growth, if I'd kind of, you know, had a harder week. So, and looking at, where was I last week? What was put in place for me? What did I do that week that made me feel much better? And these are professionals, they're unbiased and it's just a safe space. And there are often free or low cost counselling options available if your finances are a concern. And if that's not necessarily the case, you could look on social media or look on Google, etc., for support groups, which normally they're run by charities. So they don't obviously ask for any monetary donations, because I know people feel kind of like if they don't have the funds to pay for counselling, they're not going to get better. And I think there are other means and ways to get around that. Um, like I say, I had also an internal counsellor in year 13 at my school, and that was an hour out of, well, it wasn't out of my classes, but it was an hour in my timetable schedule, um, where I could go and speak to her, and it was just a room. It was safe, especially as like it was kind of during the day, and I could then feel either not refreshed, but I could speak about things that maybe I had preoccupations about for the following afternoon, maybe if it was that present. And it would kind of chill me out a bit and zen me out a bit. So I hope these ideas that I've kind of brought any light to can help people dealing with loss. And I think when, for me at the moment, obviously going through a breakup, on top of just grief in general, my grief journey is um it doesn't feel as intense as it did 4 years ago, because when not stuck by, sorry, I saw this post. It was about how, so if you think of your life in like is a massive, massive circle. So to some extent, um, grief in that circle, when it first happens, when someone passes away, consumes that whole circle, right? Consumes it, because that is the only thing you can think about. You are upset, you are angry, you are frustrated, you are just chronically overwhelmed by the fact that you have got this loss in your life. And then the circle that this grief was filling slightly gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and it gets bigger. And the reason it gets bigger is because Your life is progressing. So for example, things that made my circle get bigger. Moving to university, applying for new jobs and getting new jobs, meeting new people and friends. It was just getting bigger, like, and it meant that because the outward circle was getting bigger, and the size of the grief. I'm not saying it gets smaller. It can stay same. It can stay as big as it is, but it just shows you there's more space around that circle, and it means that your whole life isn't consumed by the grief anymore because you've got other things in your life to be happy about, to be proud of. You've got more things kind of distracting you. And I think um, when I went through my breakup recently after nearly a year long relationship, I realized how much I had indirectly been relying on my ex for support, um, because obviously when I was with him, the happiness and the memories I was making the circle go much bigger, bigger, bigger. And now, obviously, I'm experiencing this grief, this red circle of grief has it getting bigger, and it's encroaching, Enco- encroaching. If my grammar is wrong, I do apologize. Encroaching on that external circle, but I know through the last 4 years, this circle will get bigger again, and nothing is ever you know, nothing is ever permanent. And these feelings and these emotions, they are very temporary. So I just think with my major source of comfort gone, I had to reassess my coping strategies. So I've reconnected with people, like I'm playing rugby again, I'm going back to the gym. Um, and there was some guilt. I feel guilty about enjoying myself. Surely, like, I shouldn't be feeling smiley and happy at the moment. I'm going through a breakup, this person was meant to be the love of my life. And you know, it's difficult, but it's just the fact that I think I'm of the concept life goes on, and these things in your life. So even losing my dad, for example, they teach you lessons that you will carry forward with you for the rest of your life. I'm not saying I'm a genius, but when my friends are feeling low, for example, or they're feeling sad and overwhelmed, I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, but I can really empathize with them. The fact that they feel like the feelings they're feeling at the moment and they're valid. Whatever you feel is valid. Don't ever forget that as well. But these feelings they're feeling are very valid, and I've felt valid feelings obviously through my process of grief. And I think it's reassuring to me and to them the fact that you know I- I've kind of gone through this in the sense of I'm not out of the woods, and I'm never going to be out of the woods, never ever. And I'm not naive to that as well. Um, but the sun shines through the woods as the seasons change. As the leaves fall off, you know, as the leaves start growing, etc. And as the days get longer, as the days get sunnier, um, and sometimes there are cloudy days. But I really think it's just in general, grief is just a weird pendulum. It goes back and forth, and there was nothing wrong with it. Um, And I think you just need to focus on enjoying the lighter moments with your friends. You know yourself what you love, and you know what to who and what to surround yourself with, and why you want to surround yourself with that. And there is nothing wrong with wanting to do that. Um, I think the most critical coping strategy is being compassionate with yourself and being easy. Like, don't be too hard on yourself. We are human. We are not robots. We are not machines. We have not been programmed to process things in the same way. For emotions you feel, like I say, are completely valid. Um, so I think you just need to really focus on building that support unit. And life can be shit. Life can feel very monotonous. It can feel like it's not going anywhere. And actually, that's not the case. And it can feel more, I mean, everyone can feel that regardless if you've experienced grief in any capacity. And I think when you're going through it as a young individual, you think, crap, is my life stopping now before I've even lived it? And that's not the case. I am making progressions in my personal life and career that I think will really boost the trajectory of my like life. So, I've just been offered an internship at Amazon, very well paid, and it looks very good in your CV. Especially, it's in supply chain management, which I mean, Amazon relies heavily on supply chain and procurement. So, I'm very excited. However, I'm also through to the last stages, sorry, of I've done assessment centres with one of the biggest consulting firms in the UK. I have all these opportunities for me and to relay down the foundations of myself. And I sit back and think, some of the coping strategies I went through, I'd look through and think that's bizarre. Like, one time I went and I was sorting out, I had so many coat hangers in my room, and I was sorting them out, and I got really angry and stressed and upset. I just started snapping them. I literally just started snapping coat hangers. And obviously, I had to hoover it up and everything and tidy it up. So that was obviously a mistake on my part. But if I look at myself and think, wow, this girl who was breaking coat hangers is now laying the foundations for for her future and hopefully a very successful career, I would have laughed. I would have been like, no, like the thought of me at the age of 17 getting any, like being, even the thought, if someone said to me, oh, you're gonna be doing really well, and after a year out of uni you're going to be offered like really good opportunities, I would have laughed. And you sit there thinking, like, some of these coping strategies you'll look back on and you'll laugh. And like, I'm absolutely baffled at how I've gone from breaking coat hangers to now finding different ways, speaking to my friends, etc. And do you know what? That worked for me. That at the time got anger out of me so much. So then, well, what did I shift that into? Okay, I'm going to go to rugby. I'm going to go play a rugby match. I'm going to go smash the hell out of this girl, respectfully, you know, because it's rugby and we do it legally because rugby has rules and regulations. We all know, um, and it's just bizarre. Um, but I feel like again I've waffled again and I've kind of gone off on a tangent and then I've kind of not realised what I've been saying. I've kind of had to reel myself back in. Um, but um, I really hope this week you've done something that makes you proud. Like, I am proud of the fact that I've gone onto campus every day. I have been to both my rugby training sessions. I have really tried to persevere. I've finished my assignment, and if you know me personally, this assignment I had to do, not my friend, was not my friend. Was literally probably the main source of stress for me for the last, well, I'd say year, because I started this assignment before I withdrew from uni and then I have to come back and finish it off, or I had to do a different question. That stressed me out within itself. But I've done it now, so I'm extremely proud of myself. And I hope, like I say, you've done something that's really made you proud this week. And if it's a little thing, like if you walked down the flight of stairs instead of taking the lift, if you, um, I don't know, if you made dinner 3 times this week instead of ordering every day, then I'm proud of you. And going back to what would I tell my younger self? You might need those coat hangers in the future when you're hanging up your clothes and you've got some jeans and you haven't got the right hangers. So don't necessarily smash them up. And I would also tell myself that, what would I tell myself? Um, don't be afraid of how crazy the foundations are that you're laying for your future are. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's only relevant to me, but I think as humans, we try and reel ourselves back and retract things because we think it's crazy and bizarre. But actually, some of these things might be the best things we ever do. Like, for example, this podcast, like, I feel so much happiness and so much solace when I'm recording this. And I just have such a big smile on my face after I record these episodes that actually, like, a year ago, 2 years ago, if I thought about starting a podcast, I thought, no, not a chance in the slightest. And now I am. So, yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely week. And I'm very glad that if you've got to this point, that you've listened to this podcast. I'm so excited for the future of this podcast, and it doesn't have to be anything revolutionary, but I'm just, like, it's something I look forward to recording at the end of the week. So, thank you so, so much. You are incredible. You are amazing. You are powerful. You are you are working towards being the best version of yourself, and I'm so proud of you. So, lots and lots of oh, I just headbutted my mic. So lots and lots of love, and yeah, and I'll see you on the next episode.